I'm Jennifer Brooks, 22 years old, fresh out of UC Berkeley with an environmental science degree. My parents never supported my choices, never clapped for my wins, never cared about my dreams. Yet they threw this lavish family party in San Francisco, all glitz and glamour. Strange, right? Just last week they hissed that I was nothing but a leech, a dead weight dragging them down. Standing there watching the champagne bubbles rise in my glass, I caught my mom slipping something into my drink when she thought no one was looking. My heart pounded. Those weren't sugar cubes, they were sleeping pills meant to knock me out cold, maybe worse. At that family party, I saw her do it. Her hands sneaky, her eyes darting. I stood up, forced a smile, my pulse racing, and made a split-second move that froze the room. One choice, one moment, and everything shifted. I knew if I didn't act fast, they'd get what they wanted: control over me, my future, everything I'd fought for. My hands trembled as I held that glass, their betrayal burning in my chest. I had to stay sharp, play it cool, or they'd spin this against me in a heartbeat. Before diving deeper into my story, I want to know what time you're listening and which city you're in. I'm thrilled to see how far this tale spreads. Share in the comments. To understand why my parents would go so far as to slip sleeping pills into my drink, you need to know about the Brooks family. We weren't the warm, fuzzy type you see in holiday commercials. My father, Robert Brooks, built Brooks Energy from a small research lab into a billion-dollar empire, branding it as a leader in renewable energy. But behind the green slogans, he was ruthless. Competitors vanished, funding dried up, permits stalled. Whispers in the industry called it sabotage, though he played the eco-warrior philanthropist in public. My mother, Susan Brooks, came from old San Francisco money, her family tied to real estate fortunes. She was obsessed with the Brooks image. Our Pacific Heights mansion graced lifestyle magazines, and her charity galas were the talk of the Bay Area elite. But at home, she was icy, always calculating, picking apart my every flaw. Then there was my sister Jessica Brooks, 3 years older, the golden child. Straight A student captain of the debate team, graduated from Columbia with honors, and joined the family company as a marketing star. Her trophies lined our hallways: tennis medals, academic plaques, even her high school art awards. My parents never missed her events, beaming at every speech or showcase. My experience completely different. I was a straight A student too, but my awards got a shrug. "That's just expected," my father would mutter, eyes glued to his tablet. When I won a regional science fair in sophomore year, my mother only remarked that my presentation slides looked sloppy. They showed up to my events only when skipping would have raised eyebrows. From childhood, they had my life mapped out. I'd study energy engineering, join Brooks Energy, and run their research division, while Jessica handled branding. My dreams didn't matter. In high school, I got hooked on environmental science, specifically how industrial runoff like chemicals from energy labs poisoned waterways like the San Francisco Bay. My father scoffed, calling it hippie nonsense. My mother said it was beneath the Brooks legacy. When I applied to UC Berkeley for environmental science, all hell broke loose. My father slammed his fist, threatening to cut me off financially. My mother wept about family duty, saying I was betraying our name. I argued I could make a difference without their blueprint, but after weeks of cold silence, I compromised, minoring in energy science and working summer internships at their company. College gave me some freedom, but the pressure never stopped. Every holiday I faced snide comments about my little phase and how I'd come around to their plan. They emailed job listings for Brooks Energy's research team, ignoring my applications to environmental nonprofits. When I landed an internship with a Bay Area group studying water pollution, they threatened to stop paying my tuition. I took out loans for my final year rather than cave. What they didn't know was that my maternal grandmother, Grandma Margaret, had left me a trust fund, $12 million accessible when I turned 23, or graduated, whichever came last. Grandma Margaret was my only real ally. A brilliant chemist, she'd been forced to play second fiddle to her husband's career. Before she passed, when I was 16, she made me promise to chase my own path. She'd seen how my parents controlled us, especially after they tried to push Jessica into an arranged engagement with a rival CEO's son for a business merger. Jessica dodged it, but it left scars. Grandma's trust was her way of giving me freedom set up with independent trustees, so my parents couldn't touch it. 3 months before my graduation, their lawyer Christopher Lane let slip about the trust during a board meeting. Jessica later told me our father's face went red with fury. That money meant I'd be independent beyond their grip. Worse, if I didn't graduate or didn't make it to 23, the trust would revert to them as next of kin. That's when their behavior shifted. The constant texts about job interviews stopped. Instead, they got oddly invested in my graduation plans. My mother called all syrupy, saying they wanted to throw a proper family party to celebrate our Jennifer. It was so unlike them. Lavish gestures weren't their style, not for me. The shift felt wrong, like a trap snapping shut. I started digging, finding Grandma's old journal among my things. Her final entry, written in shaky handwriting, warned about the Brooks family's toxic ambitions and urged me to break free before it's too late. My stomach knotted. She'd known something was off even back then. Now, standing in that party watching my mother tamper with my drink, I realized how far they'd go to keep me under their thumb and how much they feared what I might uncover about their company's secrets. College was supposed to be my escape, but my parents never let up. They kept pushing me to join Brooks Energy, flooding my inbox with job descriptions for their research division positions I had zero interest in. I'd send back polite rejections saying I wanted to focus on environmental science, on cleaning up messes like the chemical runoff poisoning the San Francisco Bay. Their replies were sharp, laced with disappointment. "You're wasting your potential," my father snapped during one tense dinner. My mother just sighed, muttering about family legacy. When I landed a summer internship with a nonprofit tracking water pollution, they hit the roof. My father threatened to cut off my tuition, his voice cold as steel. "You'll learn the hard way, Jennifer," he said. My mother chimed in, "You're throwing away everything we've built for you." I stood my ground, taking out loans to cover my final year at UC Berkeley. I wasn't going to let them dictate my life. The tension wasn't new, but it got worse after they learned about Grandma Margaret's trust, $12 million that would give me freedom when I turned 23 or graduated. My sister Jessica pulled me aside one evening at our parents' Pacific Heights mansion. They found out about the trust 3 months ago. She whispered, her eyes uneasy. Christopher Lane mentioned it during a board meeting. Father was furious, said it'd ruin everything. I pressed her for details. She hesitated, then admitted she'd overheard our parents arguing about it later. If I didn't make it to graduation or died before the trust kicked in, the money would go to them. Jessica's voice shook as she added, "They've been acting strange ever since, Jennifer. Be careful." Her warning stuck with me, especially because she'd never questioned our parents before. She was their star, but I could tell something was shifting. She was starting to see cracks in their perfect image. That's when their behavior changed. The constant emails about Brooks Energy jobs stopped. No more passive-aggressive jabs about my phase. Instead, my mother called out of the blue, her voice dripping with fake warmth. "We're throwing you a family party," she said, "to celebrate your graduation. It's only right for a Brooks." It didn't add up. They'd never cared about my milestones before. Why, now I dug through Grandma's journal again, her words haunting me. "The Brooks family will do anything to protect their empire." My gut told me this party was a setup, but I had no proof. Not yet. The morning of the party, a perfect May day in San Francisco, I stood in my apartment, nerves buzzing as I adjusted my dress. My phone pinged with a text from my mother, car service at 9:30. "Don't be late. I met my parents outside the Fairmont, San Francisco, where they'd booked the rooftop for the event." My father was glued to his phone, probably checking stock prices for Brooks Energy. My mother scanned me head to toe, her lips pursing. "Couldn't you have done something with your hair?" she said. No trace of congratulations. Jessica stood nearby, giving me a small, strained smile, like she knew something was off, but couldn't say it. My friends Samantha and Heather rushed over, their excitement cutting through the tension. "You made it through Berkeley." Samantha hugged me, whispering, "Your parents still act like you're a disappointment." Heather nodded. "Some things never change." I forced a laugh, but my eyes caught my parents stepping aside, their heads bent together in a hushed, intense exchange. I couldn't catch much, but my father's voice carried, "We need to handle this today, Susan, before it's out of our control." My mother nodded, her face tight, then spotted me watching. She flashed a practiced smile, all teeth and no warmth. "Darling, let's get inside. The guests are arriving." My stomach twisted. Their words echoed Grandma's warning, and Jessica's unease from weeks earlier replayed in my head. I needed answers. Before the party started, I slipped away to a quiet corner near the service entrance, pretending to check my phone. That's when I heard them again, my parents arguing in low, angry whispers behind a partition. "Is this really necessary?" My mother hissed, her voice sharp with nerves. "We could just talk to her, Robert." My father's reply was venomous. "Talk. She's stubborn as hell, Susan. The EPA's sniffing around our West facility. Those water samples could sink us. If she goes public with her environmental crusade, we're done. The trust makes her untouchable. $12 million and she's out of our reach." My mother's voice dropped lower. "But slipping pills in her drink? At her own party?" My father cut her off. "It's just enough to make her sick, knock her out for a few days. Food poisoning, that's what it'll look like. We'll handle the trust paperwork before it transfers next week. If she's out of the picture, the money's ours." My blood ran cold. I gripped my phone so hard my knuckles whitened, barely breathing as I recorded their words through the partition, thanks to a tip from my boyfriend James, who taught me how to use the app discreetly. They were planning to drug me, not to kill, but to hospitalize me long enough to steal my inheritance and bury their company's crimes. The Brooks empire was built on lies, and I was the one thing standing in their way. The Fairmont San Francisco's rooftop was a spectacle, ice sculptures dripping in the May heat, champagne fountains sparkling under chandeliers, gourmet stations piled with food, and a string quartet humming in the corner. Guests mingled their laughter loud, half of them strangers to me, business associates, not family friends. I stood by a table, my stomach still churning from what I'd overheard in the service corridor. My parents' plan to slip sleeping pills into my drink to make me sick enough to miss the trust deadline and bury their company's secrets felt like a blade in my chest. I scanned the crowd, spotting my father Robert shaking hands with men in tailored suits. His smile all business. My mother, Susan, glided through the room playing the perfect hostess while my sister Jessica lingered near the bar, her eyes darting nervously. Professor Daniel, my advisor from UC Berkeley, approached with a glass of water. "Quite the show your parents put on," he said, his tone warm but cautious. "Congratulations, Jennifer. You've earned this." I forced a smile. "It's a bit much for them, don't you think?" "Not their usual style." He nodded, glancing at my father. "Those are board members from Brooks Energy," he murmured. "I hear the EPA's been circling their West facility lately. Rumors of water contamination. Be careful, they're on edge." His words hit like a warning shot, echoing what I'd heard about the polluted bay. I thanked him, my mind racing as I caught my parents watching me, not with pride, but with a cold, calculating stare that made my skin crawl. Jessica sidled up, her voice low. "Something's not right, Jennifer. Father asked me twice if you'd mentioned your plans after graduation." Mother keeps checking her phone like she's waiting for a signal. Before I could respond, my father raised his glass. The room quieting. "In 15 minutes, we'll toast to the family," he announced, his businessman grin plastered on. "Everyone grab a champagne flute." Waiters moved in, arranging trays of glasses. I watched my father point to a specific bottle with a silver label. "That one," he said sharply to a waiter. "For the family only." I excused myself, heart pounding, and slipped toward the employee restroom to clear my head. Near the service door, I heard their voices again, my parents arguing in hushed tones. "Are you sure about this, Robert?" My mother whispered, her voice tight. It's risky. My father's tone was ice. The EPA's closing in, Susan. If she starts digging into the bay pollution, we're finished. Those pills will put her in the hospital for a few days long enough to lock down the trust. It'll look like a bad stomach bug, nothing more. My mother hesitated, but at her own party, he snapped back. Keep your voice down. We can't let $12 million slip away. I pressed myself against the wall, my phone already recording thanks to James, my boyfriend, who'd shown me how to capture audio discreetly. Their words confirmed they'd do anything to stop me. Back in the main room, I forced my face into a calm mask, years of dodging their manipulation kicking in. Waiters arranged champagne flutes on a silver tray, my father hovering nearby inspecting each glass. He picked one, setting it slightly apart, his movements deliberate. I spotted James across the room, giving him a subtle nod to start recording on his phone. My friends Samantha and Heather stood nearby chatting about our post-graduation plans, sharing an apartment, starting our careers. I pulled them aside, my voice steady despite the panic clawing at me. I need a favor. No questions, I whispered. Samantha, keep your phone ready to record the toast. Make sure you get my father in the frame when he hands out the glasses. Samantha nodded, loyal as always. You okay? Heather asked, her brow creasing. Just family stuff, I said, forcing a smile. You know how it is. The minutes dragged like hours. My environmental science training kicked in, analyzing what those pills could be. Something subtle, mimicking food poisoning, likely from Brooks Energy's research labs, hard to trace. Nausea, dizziness, maybe a racing pulse. If it hit, I'd need to act fast, tell the paramedics what to check. My father called everyone together, his voice booming. Time for the family toast. He grabbed the silver label bottle, pouring into the flutes himself, ensuring the marked glass stayed separate. He handed one to my mother, then Jessica, and finally approached me, his eyes locking onto mine with a smile that didn't reach them. To Jennifer, he said loudly, pressing the glass into my hand, its base slightly cloudy with undissolved powder. My mother stepped in smoothly. Robert, say a few words about our daughter. He cleared his throat, slipping into his CEO charm. Jennifer's always been determined, he began, his words dripping with hidden disdain only I could hear. She's chosen her own path, and today we celebrate her milestone. The guests clapped, oblivious. My mind spun. That glass in my hand was a ticking bomb. Samantha was recording her phone, angled discreetly. I needed evidence. Refusing the drink would just give them another chance later. I had to act now. Before we toast, I said, stepping forward with a bright smile, I want to honor my sister Jessica. She's been the family's shining star, and I wouldn't be here without her. I turned to her, raising my glass. This champagne's too good not to share, sis. Take mine. Before anyone could react, I pressed my untouched flute into Jessica's hand smoothly, taking hers, all ready, sipped safe. My father's face froze, his eyes wide with suppressed panic. My mother's grip tightened on her glass, her smile cracking. Jessica looked confused, but smiled back, social habit taking over. To family, I said, raising her safe glass, staring straight at my father. To family, Jessica echoed, drinking deeply from the tainted flute. The room cheered, glasses clinking, but my father's face was ashen, sweat beading on his brow. My mother darted glances between him and Jessica, her composure fraying. I sipped Jessica's glass, holding my father's gaze, my heart pounding but my expression steady. The quartet played on, guests oblivious. Guilt twisted in my gut. I'd let my sister drink something meant for me. They'd said it wouldn't kill, just sicken, but what if they'd lied? 30 minutes later, it hit. Jessica was chatting with a guest when she stumbled, pressing a hand to her forehead. I feel dizzy, she mumbled, her voice slurring. She swayed, collapsing into the guest's arms. Help, he shouted. Something's wrong. My parents rushed over, their panic real now that their golden child was hit. My father knelt beside her, his hands shaking. Call an ambulance. My mother screamed, her poise gone. Professor Daniel pushed through, checking her pulse. Her heart's racing, he said, loosening her scarf. The room buzzed with chaos, guests whispering. My father's eyes snapped to mine, fury mixing with fear. I stared back, unflinching. Stay with her, I told my parents, my voice firm. I'll guide the paramedics. As I moved toward the exit, I called Samantha. Meet me downstairs now, I said. Bring the video, it's an emergency. The ambulance screeched through San Francisco streets, sirens blaring as I followed in a cab with James, my heart pounding with guilt and fear. Jessica was in there, fighting the effects of the sleeping pills meant for me. At NYU Langone Hospital, chaos greeted us. Nurses rushed Jessica into the emergency room, her face pale, her breathing uneven. My parents were already there, my mother sobbing loudly to anyone who'd listen. My daughter just collapsed. No reason, my father stood rigid. His eyes darting to me, a mix of panic and rage. I ignored them, pushing through to the nurse's station. I need to speak to the doctor now, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. I'm an environmental science graduate, and I think my sister ingested something dangerous in her champagne. The nurse raised an eyebrow but nodded, calling Dr. Thomas, the emergency physician. I turned to Samantha, who'd arrived with Heather clutching her phone. Did you get the video? I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide. It's all there, your father handing you the glass, the switch, everything. I sent a copy to your email. I exhaled, relieved. That video was my lifeline. Dr. Thomas approached, his face serious. Your sister's showing signs of anticholinergic effects. Dizziness, confusion, elevated heart rate, he said. We're running toxicology screens. What makes you suspect foul play? I took a deep breath. I believe my parents put a compound from Brooks Energy's labs in my drink, but Jessica drank it instead. Test for experimental sedatives, ones not on standard screens. His eyes narrowed, but he picked up the phone to alert the lab. My parents hovered nearby, my mother's sobs growing theatrical, my father gripping his phone like a weapon. I pulled James aside. Send the video to the police when they get here, I said. Tell them everything you saw. He squeezed my hand, his voice low. I've got you, Jen. Minutes later, Detective Matthew arrived, a no-nonsense cop with sharp eyes. Walk me through it, he said, notebook ready. I recounted the overheard conversation at the party, my father's careful selection of the tainted glass, and my split-second decision to switch with Jessica. I didn't think it was lethal, I said, my voice shaking. I just needed proof. I'm so sorry she's suffering. He scribbled, his expression unreadable. And why would they do this? I swallowed hard. Money. Control. My grandmother left me a trust, $12 million that activates next week. If I'm out of the picture, it goes to them. Plus, they're hiding something about their company pollution in the San Francisco Bay. Before he could respond, my mother stormed over, mascara streaking. This is absurd, she cried. Jennifer's always been jealous of Jessica, making up lies to tear us apart. My father joined her, his voice low and dangerous. She's unstable, detective. She's been resentful of our expectations for years. Christopher Lane, their lawyer, appeared, placing a hand on my father's arm. My clients have no comment, he said smoothly. Any questions go through me. Detective Matthew raised an eyebrow. We have a video, Mr. Lane. It shows your client handing Jennifer a specific glass and her switching it with Jessica's. My father's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. An hour later, Dr. Thomas returned with a tablet. Toxicology found a modified sedative, a research compound from Brooks Energy's labs, he said. It's not commercially available, only someone with access to their facilities could get it. We're giving her physostigmine to counter it. She's stable, but it was close. Relief flooded me, but guilt lingered. Jessica could have been hurt worse. I asked to see her. In her hospital room, she lay connected to monitors, looking fragile but awake. Jen, she whispered, her voice raspy. They told me. Did our parents really try to drug you? I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I'm so sorry, sis. I switched the glasses to get evidence. I didn't know what else to do. Her hand squeezed mine weakly. I saw reports at work, she said, her eyes hardening. Sealed files about chemical dumping in the bay. Heavy metals, toxic sludge. I didn't connect the dots until now. Before I could respond, Agent Tyler from the FBI entered, his badge glinting. Miss Brooks, we've been investigating Brooks Energy for 6 months. Fraud, environmental violations, falsified safety data, he said. Your sister's incident gave us cause to move faster. We executed search warrants on your parents' offices and home an hour ago. Jessica's monitors beeped as her heart rate spiked. I signed some of those papers, she said, her voice breaking. They told me it was routine compliance. Agent Tyler nodded. We'll need your statement later. For now, rest. As he left, Jessica turned to me, tears streaming. I trusted them blindly. Defended them when you said they were controlling. And they did this. I held her hand tightly. They manipulated us both, Jess. But we're done being their pawns. The hospital room became a hub of activity. Detective Matthew separated my parents for questioning my mother's protests echoing down the hall. My father demanded Christopher Lane, his voice icy. I sat with Jessica, our hands still clasped, a new bond forming through shared betrayal. Hours later, Agent Tyler returned with a folder. We found something in your parents' home, he said, holding up a small leather journal. It's your grandmother's. Recognize it. I opened it. My breath catching. Grandma Margaret's handwriting detailed her suspicions about Brooks Energy's early pollution, decades-old records of chemical dumping she'd tried to expose. Her final entry read, Jennifer has the strength to end this family's lies. I trust her to do what I couldn't. The San Francisco Chronicle broke the story 2 days later. Energy CEO and wife arrested for attempted drugging of daughter. Smaller headlines screamed FBI uncovers fraud and toxic dumping at Brooks Energy. Our family name, once a symbol of wealth, became synonymous with greed and betrayal. At the preliminary hearing weeks later, the courtroom was packed. My parents sat at the defense table dressed impeccably despite detention. My mother's eyes welled when she saw Jessica, but my father stared ahead, refusing to look at us. The prosecution played Samantha's video clear as day, my father handing me the tainted glass, my switch with Jessica. Toxicology reports matched the compound to Brooks Energy's labs. Financial records showed the trust motive, and FBI evidence revealed years of illegal dumping that poisoned Bay Area communities linked to rising cancer rates. When the judge ruled there was enough evidence for trial, including attempted harm and environmental crimes, my mother collapsed in sobs. My father's face stayed stone cold, his jaw clenched. Outside, reporters swarmed. Jessica grabbed my hand, stepping forward with fire in her eyes. My sister saved my life, she said, her voice steady. Our parents tried to drug her to steal her inheritance and hide their crimes. They're the ones who betrayed this family, not us. The crowd fell silent, cameras flashing. I squeezed her hand, my heart swelling. We were no longer their perfect daughter and their disappointment. We were survivors standing together against their lies. The fallout came fast. My parents took plea deals, 20 years for my father Robert on charges of attempted harm and environmental violations, 15 for my mother Susan after she agreed to testify about Brooks Energy's fraud. The judge called them flight risks, citing offshore accounts they'd siphoned funds into for years. Their empire crumbled overnight. The FBI's search warrants uncovered damning evidence, emails detailing falsified safety reports, records of chemical dumping into the San Francisco Bay, linked to cancer spikes in nearby communities. My parents' names, once plastered on charity banners, became shorthand for corporate greed and family betrayal. Jessica and I hired our own lawyer, a sharp woman named Ellen Carter, to untangle our ties to Brooks Energy. Your grandmother's trust is secure, she told us in her San Francisco office. The trustees expedited the transfer given the circumstances. The $12 million was mine, but I didn't want their tainted legacy. We sold their Pacific Heights mansion and personal assets, directing every cent to a victim compensation fund for communities poisoned by the Bay's contamination. Cleanup costs topped $100 million, but it was a start. I used part of my trust to establish a foundation focused on water quality testing and healthcare for affected families. It couldn't erase the damage, but it felt like a step toward justice. Jessica resigned from Brooks Energy the day she left the hospital. I can't be part of their lies anymore, she told me, her voice firm, despite the shadows under her eyes. She enrolled in law school at UCLA, specializing in environmental law, driven to hold companies like our parents accountable. I moved to a small house on a lake in Northern California, a property Grandma Margaret had left me, where we'd spent summers as kids, free from our parents' control. The quiet there was healing, a stark contrast to the cold perfection of our old mansion. Jessica joined me a month later, selling her downtown condo, too haunted by memories of family dinners and fake smiles. Walking through the lake house one November morning, 7 months after that fateful party, I found another of Grandma's journals in a dusty box. Her words hit hard. The Brooks family poisons everything water trusts love. Jennifer break their cycle. She'd seen their corruption decades ago and trusted me to end it. Jessica read it over my shoulder, her hand on mine. You did what she wanted, she said softly. We both did. That moment solidified our bond, not just as sisters, but as survivors who'd chosen truth over loyalty to a toxic name. We cut all ties with our parents. No visits, no letters, no inheritance. Their lawyers tried reaching out, offering apologies that rang hollow. We refused to hear them. They'd tried to drug me, destroy Jessica, and poison entire communities for profit. There was no forgiveness, no reconciliation, only a clean break. I started a job with an environmental firm in California, using my degree to clean up industrial pollution, turning Brooks Energy's damage into something reparable. Jessica threw herself into her studies, her old perfectionist drive now fueled by purpose, not parental approval. Standing on the lake house porch one evening, watching the sunset ripple across the water, I reflected on what we'd lost and gained. The Brooks name was dead to us, but we'd found something better, a family built on trust, not blood. Samantha, Heather, James, and Professor Daniel had stood by us, my chosen family, through every step. I'd learned a hard truth. Blood doesn't guarantee love or loyalty. My parents saw me as a threat to control, a leech to eliminate, but their betrayal taught me to spot manipulation early, to recognize the signs of a toxic family and walk away. That's the lesson I want you to take from this. Don't let greed or control blind you. Choose justice, choose independence, and choose people who lift you up. If you're stuck in a toxic situation, reach out to friends, to professionals, to anyone who'll listen. You don't have to face it alone. My grandmother's trust gave me freedom, but her real gift was believing I could break free from the Brooks poison. That faith carried me through, and it's shaping my future now. I'm building a life rooted in truth, not lies, and I hope my story reminds you that you can too. Thank you for listening to my journey. If it resonated, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of survival and strength. Drop a comment below, share your own experiences or thoughts. What's helped you break free from toxic ties? Let's keep this conversation going.
Banking app out of habit and froze. $360,000.
Gone.
Every cent I had saved over 8 years. Every sleepless night. Every freelance contract. Every second job. Every bonus stacked and counted for one goal. My first house. I blinked. Refreshed the screen.
Still gone.
I called the bank, heart in my throat. The representative calmly explained that the withdrawal was made legally by someone with joint access. Someone I had once, years ago, added for emergency only. My parents. I didn't call right away. I didn't scream. I drove straight to their house, silent the whole way there. My father was in the backyard, grilling. My mother was arranging roses on the table like it was any other evening. My sister sat with her legs crossed, scrolling on her phone, wearing a designer sweater I knew I hadn't seen before. I need to talk to you, I said, barely managing to keep my voice level. My father smiled. Ah, you saw it? I blinked. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Thanks for your naivety, Maya. Your money has now secured your sister's bright future. She's going to London, the full program. Travel, tuition, everything. I felt like I couldn't breathe. You stole from me. My mother rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. Stole? Maya, please. You've been hoarding that money for years. For what? A little house in the suburbs? A girl like you would have wasted it anyway. And my sister? She didn't even look up. Just smirked, like she'd already won. I couldn't hold back anymore. I laughed. Once.
Loudly.
A strange, hollow laugh that startled all three of them. Because the money they took wasn't mine. Not really. Not anymore. You see, I'm not just some naive little saver they thought I was. They never asked how I doubled that original $360,000. They never asked how I paid off my debts early, or how I took 2 years off work and somehow came back richer. Because they never cared. They only saw the visible account, the decoy I kept for appearances. They never even imagined there might be more. That I might be more. So as they stood there, smug and stupid and sure that they'd ruin me, I smiled wider. Because the account they drained? It was bait. They took the trap. And now they taught me exactly what I needed to know. I turned to leave. My father called after me. You're being childish, Maya. This is family. I stopped at the door. Looked over my shoulder.
No.
This was business. You made that clear. And I walked out. My name is Maya. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the money they stole was a test. And now, the daughter they built to serve them was about to burn their future to the ground. I wasn't raised to be loved. I was raised to be useful. I was the firstborn, the mature one, the dependable daughter, the built-in fixer. They didn't celebrate me. They utilized me. While my younger sister, Alina, was praised for her looks, charm, and potential, I was handed responsibilities. At 10, I was babysitting her. At 13, I was balancing grocery budgets. At 16, I was forging my own permission slips because my parents were too busy to sign anything that wasn't about Alina. They taught me early that attention was currency, and I didn't have enough to buy any. But what I could earn was usefulness. So I became the best at it. I worked part-time jobs through college, kept my grades perfect, cooked dinner when mom was too tired, covered for dad when his business failed quietly behind closed doors. And still they barely looked at me. Alina, meanwhile, coasted through life on a golden float. Failed classes? She's just figuring herself out. Expensive hobbies? She deserves to try things. Impulsive trips, new boyfriends, big mistakes? They were always learning experiences. But I was held to a different standard. I was the fallback plan, the dependable one, the piggy bank in human form. When I got my first full-time job, I thought maybe they'd be proud. Instead, they asked for help with the mortgage. I gave it. When I bought a used car for cash, they borrowed it for 6 months. When I opened a savings account, they casually asked to be added, just in case anything ever happened. I didn't hesitate, because I didn't think they'd take it. I thought maybe this time they'd prove me wrong. They didn't. That $360,000 wasn't a number to me. It was 8 years of skipped vacations, packed lunches, quiet birthdays, and 3 a.m. freelance deadlines. It was my first house. My only plan. They knew all that. And they still took it. With a smile. Because they never saw me as someone who deserved. Just someone who provided. But here's what they didn't see coming. That usefulness they weaponized? It made me dangerous. Because I didn't just save. I studied. I learned. I planned. And over the years, while I handed them the visible crumbs, I was building my own feast behind closed doors. I funneled freelance income into diversified investments. I put money in a trust. I bought digital assets under an alias. I partnered quietly in 2 early-stage startups. I registered an LLC abroad. Everything they thought I was saving was already doubled and buried in places they could never touch. The account they drained? It wasn't my future. It was my trap. Because if you want to know who someone really is, give them access to your peace, and see what they do with it.
They chose theft.
They chose betrayal. So now I was free of obligation, free of guilt, free to become someone they couldn't control and couldn't predict. People say I'm quiet, polite, easy to overlook. They're right, and that's exactly why I win. Because what my parents thought was my entire savings was nothing more than a decoy. The $360,000 they drained? It was technically mine, but it wasn't my wealth. It was my bait. Let me explain. Years ago, when I started making decent money, I opened 2 accounts. One joint savings account I told my parents about, and one private one they never knew existed. Guess which one they always asked about? I'd intentionally funnel a portion of my income into the joint account. Enough to look impressive. Enough to prove I was doing well. I let them brag about it to family. Maya's so responsible. She's saved over 6 figures already. Meanwhile, I moved my real income, my consulting contracts, my stock payouts, my crypto flips, into separate channels. By the time I was 29, I had built over $1.1 million across diversified accounts, trust funds, and business equity. But my parents? They were watching the wrong wallet. They always were. The funny part? They thought they were clever, withdrawing the money just before I closed on a house. They thought they beat me to the punch. It's too late for her to pull it back now. I overheard my mother say the day after the theft. It's done. She'll forgive us eventually. They really thought I was that predictable. But they didn't know the house deal was fake. They didn't know I had forged the timeline emails, fake agent contacts, even a fake property listing. I made it believable because I wanted them to think they were stealing something precious. They were always going to take it. I just made sure they did it when I was ready. Because what they stole was recoverable. It was tracked, isolated, and insured. Yes, insured. I had moved those funds through a business pipeline the month before. Filed it as capital movement. When I filed the theft report and provided the evidence, names, access logs, IP locations, timestamps, the bank's fraud division flagged it within 48 hours. They'll get a nice little investigation out of it. And I'll get my claim reimbursed. Quietly, without them ever realizing. But I won't tell them that. Let them think they robbed me blind. Let them think they won. Because I wasn't after the money. I was after truth. And they gave it to me in the clearest language they speak, greed. They confirmed everything I'd spent a decade trying not to believe. That I was never the daughter they protected. I was the daughter they exploited. So now the script flips. They have no idea what's already moving behind the scenes. But the car? That was in my name. The house? Joint investment deed that I can now legally pull out of. Their golden daughter's tuition? Backed by a guarantor.
Me.
And I've just sent the notice to dissolve that agreement. They took from the wrong daughter. But they did it with such confidence. I almost want to thank them. Because in robbing me, they revealed everything.
And now?
I'm done playing pawn. I'm about to become the architect of their unraveling. You don't survive in a family like mine by being emotional. You survive by being strategic. And I had been planning this for years. The moment I realized I was just their backup plan, not their daughter, was the moment I started thinking like a banker, not a child. So no, I wasn't shocked when they stole the $360,000.
I wanted them to.
Because now, I had everything I needed. Intent.
Opportunity.
Evidence. And best of all, silence. I didn't yell when I found out. Didn't fight. Didn't try to reason. Because the moment you raise your voice, they dismiss you as hysterical. But silence? Silence terrifies selfish people. It makes them wonder what you know, what you're doing, what you're planning. And I was planning everything. I started with the utilities. For years, I'd been quietly paying their electricity, phone, and internet bills through autodraft. No thanks, no acknowledgement, just quiet dependence. I canceled it all in one evening. The next morning, I got a text from my dad. Hey, do you know what's going on with the power company? The bill didn't process this month. I didn't reply. That weekend, I removed myself from the cosign line of credit I'd helped them open. They had no idea I could do that without their signature, but I could.
Because I set it up that way.
One letter, one fax, one form.
Done.
Their credit dropped by 72 points in 2 days. Then I cashed out of the family investment they'd forgotten. I still had a 49% claim to a silent stake in the house my father built himself, but funded with my money 5 years ago. I sent a formal withdrawal notice through my attorney. They'd either have to buy me out or sell. And I already knew they couldn't afford to do either. Meanwhile, my sister? Still parading around Europe like she was untouchable. Until she wasn't. Because the final string I cut was the guarantor form for her university program. She was accepted into a prestigious international business school. What no one knew was that the school required a financial backer from the home country, someone legally responsible if tuition lapsed. That person was me. I had done it years ago, quietly, to help her get in. A favor she never even acknowledged. So I revoked it. One email, one scan.
Done.
The school's financial office emailed her the next day. I can only imagine the panic. The money they stole? It was already spent. But their security blanket?
Me?
I was gone. And all the systems they used to lean on were starting to collapse. Quietly, slowly, relentlessly. No explosions. No screaming matches. Just doors closing. I knew they'd come knocking eventually. But this time, I wouldn't be home. Because they thought I was some fragile little savings account with a soft voice and a good heart. They didn't realize I was watching, waiting, setting the table for a reckoning. I let them steal from me, so I could finally walk away without guilt. So when they called it family, I could say, with clean hands and a calm smile, this was business. You know what no one ever tells you? Leaving isn't the hard part. Watching them realize you were the foundation, that's the satisfying part. Once they drained the $360,000, they thought I'd scream,
Cry. Beg.
Instead, I got to work. Operation Extraction had one goal: remove every single link, dollar, document, and obligation that tied me to them. And I started with the most personal one. My name. I legally changed it just the middle and last. Quietly. Efficiently. They wouldn't know until they saw it in a headline or a contract. I updated my legal and business records, pulled my signature off every co-owned item, from the joint safety deposit box to the emergency insurance account I once opened for my dad after his heart scare. All gone. Every time they tried to use something with my name on it, they'd hit a wall. And I didn't stop there. Remember that modest car I bought for the family years ago? The one my mom drove like she owned it? I reported it as reclaimed.
Because it was still legally mine.
And guess what? She'd never transferred the title. Classic oversight. One tow truck later, the car was in my name and back in my garage. I sold it the next week and used the funds to upgrade Ava's school account. Oh right, Ava. My daughter. Did I mention my parents never once offered to babysit? Never celebrated her birthdays. Never visited her school. And yet, somehow, my mother always found a way to call herself Grandma of the Year on Facebook. So I deleted every photo of Ava from their shared cloud folder. Revoked permissions. Digitally erased the narrative they never earned. It was surgical. Every time they turned a corner in their life, something was missing. The light bill? Unpaid. The retirement account my dad didn't even realize I was still contributing to? Frozen. The travel credit card my sister used under my name to book hotels?
Closed.
Piece by piece, I dismantled the life they built on top of me. And, while they were flailing, I was flying. I moved into a high-rise condo. Signed 2 new consulting clients. Started planning a retreat for young women like me. The forgotten daughters, the quiet providers, the ones who paid for everyone else's peace. I didn't announce it, didn't flaunt it, because I didn't need them to see me rise. I just needed them to feel the fall. One night, I got a message from my father. We need to talk. What you're doing is petty and hurtful. It was the first time he'd reached out in weeks. And still, there was no apology. Just blame. Just deflection. So I sent back one line. You stole a test, not my life. And I've already passed. Then I blocked his number. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about removal. Removing myself from their chaos. Removing the lies I used to tell myself to survive. Removing the guilt they'd carefully embedded in every thank you they never said. I wasn't leaving angry. I was leaving free. And the family that thought I'd collapse without them? They were finally learning the truth. I wasn't their backup plan. I was their only plan. And I just walked out the front door. It started with a flight. A canceled one. Alina had booked a business class seat to Milan for a networking conference her university recommended, probably more for the selfies than the seminars. She posted the itinerary weeks in advance. Airplane London, Milan, Barcelona. Hashtag boss babe in Europe. But when she arrived at Heathrow, she was told the booking was cancelled. Insufficient funds. She called the airline, then the credit card company. She tried to play the part of the rondelite, but the truth was simpler. I closed the card. Because it was mine. And for years, she used it with my permission, for emergencies, just this once. You'll get it back, right? She never did. So I took it back. And that was just the start. 2 weeks later, her university sent a notice. Tuition installment overdue. She emailed them frantically, attached a screenshot of the payment promise, guaranteed under my name. They replied, "We regret to inform you that your financial guarantor has formally withdrawn responsibility. Please settle the remaining balance within 14 days or your enrollment will be reviewed." I had been her invisible net. Every semester, every fee, every glitch in her student visa, fixed by me, not because I loved her more than she loved me, but because I wanted to believe that if I gave enough, they'd finally see me. They never did. So I stopped giving. Alina messaged me 3 times. Once with fake sweetness. "Hey, can you help? I think something went wrong with the payments." Once with passive aggression. "It's really messed up that you'd sabotage your own sister." And finally, desperation. "They're talking about suspension. I don't have the money. Please, Maya. Please." I didn't reply. Not because I was cruel. Because I was done. I wasn't her invisible donor anymore. I wasn't her faceless fallback. I was the sister she ignored at dinners. The one she rolled her eyes at when I didn't dress trendy. The one she stole from and watched my parents laugh about it like it was a prank. She had posted once, back when she got accepted into her program. "All thanks to the support of my amazing parents. Hashtag blessed, hashtag grateful. I was never mentioned. And that's fine. Because now, she could run to them for help. Except their house was on the verge of foreclosure. Their bank account was under investigation. Their network was dried up. And her amazing parents? Busy trying to get the lights turned back on. The golden child wasn't golden anymore. She was just another shadow in a sinking ship. And I was sitting by the window of my new condo, watching the sunset, eating takeout, my phone on silent. I didn't need an update to know how it was going. Because for the first time, their lives were playing out without my money propping them up. And the silence that once haunted me, now it healed me. Because no amount of status, no shiny degree, no pretty pictures in foreign cafes, could save her from the fact that her whole world had been financed by the sister she mocked. And that sister just pulled the plug. It started small. A single email. No subject line. Just, "Can we talk?" I didn't open it. Then came the messages. From my mother. "Maya, please. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be." From my father. "This is beneath you. We're your family." From Alina, full breakdown mode. "They're threatening to kick me out. I didn't know you'd do this. Please. Please." Each one more desperate than the last. They didn't realize. I wasn't being cold. I was being clear. They had made a choice. When they took my money and laughed. When they called me naive. When they said I'd waste it anyway. They knew what they were doing. They just didn't think I'd respond like this.
They thought I'd cry.
Instead, I built walls thick, quiet, and unbreakable. They tried calling. From new numbers. Old numbers. Blocked numbers. They tried messaging on platforms I forgot I still had. And I let every single alert flash across my screen. Unread. unanswered, until one voicemail broke the pattern. It was my father's voice, but not the version I grew up with. No arrogance. No power. Just collapse. We didn't think you'd actually cut us off. Your mother's not sleeping. Your sister's losing her place. We're drowning, Maya. We didn't mean for it to go this far. That line. We didn't mean for it to go this far.
It stuck with me.
Because they did. They meant for me to go that far, far enough to lose everything. They just never imagined I'd stop turning around for them. That afternoon, I got a delivery. An envelope. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, a letter, shaky, rushed. From my mother. You don't have to forgive us. Just help. That's what family does. And taped to the back, a childhood photo of me. 7 years old. Smiling. Missing front teeth. They must have dug it out like a relic, hoping sentiment would do what guilt couldn't. I stared at the picture. That little girl? She deserved love. Deserved protection. Deserved to grow up in a home that didn't label her as less just because she didn't shine the way her sister did.
And now?
Now she was safe. Because I had built a life around her, and for her, that they could never touch again. I took the photo, folded it carefully, and placed it in my drawer. The letter? I burned it. The next morning, I sent them a single message. One line. No hello. No emotion. No wiggle room. Funny how fast the future collapses when it's built on stolen bricks. Then I blocked them. Every single one. No more explanations. No more defense. No more pleading to be seen. I was done. Not angry. Finished. Because the one thing they were never prepared for was the girl they used as their foundation finally walking away and letting the whole damn house fall. They thought they took everything from me. What they actually did was pay for my freedom. Because with every selfish decision, every cruel remark, every dollar they stole, they severed the last threads I was too loyal to cut. So I thanked them.
Silently.
And then I moved forward. The week after I blocked them, I closed on a property in the hills. Quiet. Peaceful.
Mine.
Paid in full. I renovated the guest room into a studio. For writing, dreaming, resting. The walls are lined with books I never had time to read when I was busy funding everyone else's comfort. The kitchen is always stocked. The bills are on autopay for my home. And Ava? She's thriving. She doesn't ask about them anymore. She doesn't flinch when the doorbell rings. Because our home is filled with softness now, not survival. I used a portion of my actual savings, the part they never touched, to launch a mentorship fund for girls like me. First generation. Overlooked. Used as emotional ATMs by the people who were supposed to love them. It's called Daughters Who Stayed. Because we did stay far too long. Now, we build exits. The fund quietly covers tuition, housing, therapy, or whatever peace looks like for the girls who never got to have it. No fanfare. Just healing. Last month, a journalist reached out. Wanted to do a story on my financial journey. Self-made millionaire. Estranged from her family. I declined the interview. Not because I'm ashamed, but because they don't deserve a spotlight. I'm not the girl they forgot anymore. I'm the woman they lost. And the world I built? It's not built on spite. It's built on clarity. They taught me what not to become. And in doing so, they handed me the blueprint for becoming unstoppable. Sometimes I still think about that moment. My father laughing. My mother's smugness. Alina's indifference. I think about how sure they were that I was weak. How proud they were to tell me the money I earned had secured someone else's bright future. And I smile. Because that was the last moment they'd ever feel power over me. Now my power is quiet.
But vast.
It's in the way my phone doesn't light up with demands anymore. It's in the way my bank account only reflects my own needs. It's in Ava's smile. In the stillness. In the enoughness of our days. And that girl, the one they underestimated, she didn't waste anything. She just invested it in the one place they never could control. Herself. They stole a decoy and called it a victory. But I built an empire in silence. And the daughter they erased from the story? She became the one they'll never be able to rewrite. Night, mine stood still and watched me burn. Why don't you just disappear? My sister screamed, shaking with rage. She stood in the center of our living room, hair wild, mascara streaking, fury aimed straight at me like I was the match that ruined her perfect life. And my parents? They didn't stop her. My father crossed his arms. My mother didn't blink when she said, "You're a curse to this family. Get out and never come back." And just like that, I became invisible. No one asked for my side. No one asked how I felt. No one asked why my sister's engagement collapsed, or why her employer flagged her for misconduct, or why I happened to be in the room when it all came crashing down.
No.
They chose their narrative, the one where I ruin things. The one where I exist only to absorb blame and stay quiet while doing it. So I didn't argue. I didn't cry, or scream, or beg. I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and walked out the door. Quietly. That's how it always was in this house. Screaming wins. Silence disappears. As I stepped outside, the winter air hit me like a slap. My hands were trembling, but my mind was finally still. I didn't have a plan. Just a vow. Never again. Never again would I live in a place where my presence was treated like a problem. Never again would I shrink so others could shine. Never again would I carry guilt for being less convenient than their golden child. I found a friend who let me sleep on her couch. Got a job at a local print shop. Worked nights building freelance design projects from my old laptop. I ate quietly. I earned quietly. And I built something in the dark, slowly, but fiercely. Because when your own family casts you out, you learn fast how to become your own rescue. That was 2.5 years ago. And this morning, everything changed. I woke up in my apartment, the one I bought in cash last fall, to 14 missed calls from numbers I knew by heart, but hadn't dialed in years.
Mom.
Dad. Even my sister. Text after text poured in. "Layla, please call. It's serious. We need to talk." Something's happened. I didn't panic. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen counter and scrolled through the messages like I was reading a book I'd already memorized. Because I knew what happened. The news broke last night. My name. My face. My story. The outcast daughter who created a multi-million-dollar design software and sold her stake for a staggering 7 figures.
Headline.
From couch to CEO, how one disowned daughter changed everything. They didn't know what I had been building. They didn't know the curse they cast out had quietly become their only hope.
And now?
They were calling. Desperate. Suddenly remembering I existed. My name is Layla. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because the night they told me to disappear, they gave me my freedom. And now that I've made something of it, they want it back. But I'm not the quiet girl they left behind. Not anymore. You don't become invisible all at once. It starts slow, with your name being the one they forget to mention, your birthday being the one they remember late, your voice being the one they talk over. That was my childhood. My sister, Alyssa, was the light, the performer, the achiever, the daughter with sparkle and tantrums and attention. I was the afterthought. I learned early how to make myself useful instead of loved. I cleaned without being asked, ate quickly and quietly, got straight A's, and didn't dare celebrate too loudly. When Alyssa got into cheerleading, she had custom uniforms and 2 private coaches.
When I got into computer science,
my father laughed and said, "That's not a career, that's a phase." My mother told relatives I was just trying to find myself. When Alyssa's boyfriend broke up with her in high school, the whole house dimmed in mourning. She stayed home for a week. Got flowers, ice cream,
therapy.
When I failed my first math final from exhaustion and cried in my room, my mom opened the door just to say, "You're not falling apart over a test, are you? Be strong." That phrase, be strong. I started to hate it, because in my house, be strong meant suffer quietly so your sister doesn't have to feel uncomfortable. They poured into Alyssa, and I poured into silence. The gap grew with us. She got her first car at 17. I took the bus to work. She was late for every family dinner, and they waited. I came early, and they forgot I was there. But it wasn't just favoritism. It was deletion. They acted like Alyssa was the whole painting, and I was just the blank space around her. And the irony? I never envied her spotlight. I just wanted my own little lamp in the corner. Something soft, steady, enough. I thought, maybe if I became impressive enough, quietly successful, responsibly good, I'd get something. A nod. A touch of pride. A "we're proud of you." So I overachieved. Graduated early.
Started working in design.
Picked up coding skills online. Taught myself UI/UX while everyone else was out drinking. And still, nothing. I became the family tech fix girl. Layla, can you help Dad with his email? Layla, can you fix the Wi-Fi? Layla, make yourself useful. You're good with that nerd stuff. That was the extent of it. So when the house exploded with drama last year, when Alyssa's engagement fell apart, when screenshots of her bad behavior leaked, when her employer placed her on probation, I was in the room. And even though I had nothing to do with it, she pointed at me. You're jealous of me. You always were. Admit it. You ruin everything. And the rest? Well, you already know. My parents didn't defend me. They agreed. I didn't scream. I just stood there, absorbing the same silence I'd always been given, but this time, I walked out with it. And when that door closed behind me, so did my loyalty. Because I finally understood. It was never my job to fix what they broke. It was my job to save myself from the wreckage. And I did. They thought I'd come crawling back. That I'd be gone for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, then return, humbled and desperate, begging for shelter or forgiveness or crumbs of validation. But they never stopped to ask what I could do, if I had even an ounce of peace. The first week was the hardest. I stayed on my friend Tasha's couch. She didn't ask questions, just gave me a pillow and a key. I'd sit up at night in the dark, laptop balanced on my knees, fingers aching as I tapped through mock-up screens, coding blocks, and rejected freelance gigs. I was building something, but I didn't know what it was yet. All I knew was that if I couldn't make a life for myself now, I never would. I kept my day job at the print shop. Minimum wage. Dusty.
Quiet.
But it paid just enough for instant noodles and cold coffee. Nights? That's when the real work happened. I sold logo packs on design forums. Built websites for small Etsy businesses. Offered free UI audits just to get portfolio pieces. And then one night at 3:12 a.m., something clicked. It was a layout I had mocked up 100 times. But this time, I didn't make it for a client. I made it for myself. A wireframe for a digital platform, something simple, clean, intuitive, that would let users customize interfaces without needing to code. A UI skin tool for small creators. One-click designs. Seamless branding. Drag-and-drop functions. I called it Glowform, short for Make Your Presence Shine. I launched the beta in a Discord group of indie creators. 20 users signed up in the first week. Then 50. Then 200. One girl posted a TikTok tutorial using it. Overnight, the site crashed from the traffic spike. That was the first time I cried, not from sadness. From hope. I fixed the backend, rebuilt the server, added new features. By month 4, I had 12,000 users. By the end of the year, a venture firm emailed me. They wanted a meeting. 2 months later, they invested $350,000. 6 months after that, I was sitting in a glass-paneled office with my own team, my own logo on the wall, and my own paycheck bigger than anything I'd imagined growing up in that silence. The girl who left home with a single backpack was now the CEO of her own future. And while they were busy pretending I didn't exist, I was building something they couldn't ignore. I never posted about it. Never gloated. Because this wasn't about revenge. It was about resurrection. One day, I got a message from my old high school teacher, the only person who ever believed in me back then. Just saw your interview on Founders Weekly. I always knew you'd build something. That was the day I stopped looking over my shoulder. Because I didn't need them to see me. I needed me to see me.
And now,
I saw a woman who made it, not despite being discarded, but because she finally stopped waiting to be chosen. It wasn't supposed to go viral. That was never the plan. I built Glowform to help creators, not to be seen by millions, not to become a brand, not to end up on news feeds. But then the article dropped. The tech star you've never heard of, from disowned to disruptor. A journalist found my old Medium blog, the one I wrote anonymously back when I was still couch surfing and figuring out life. She reached out, curious about the woman behind the software quietly changing the face of UI design. I said yes to the interview, hesitantly. I didn't expect it to spread. But within days it did. Tech forums, business pages, even local news stations picked it up. Abandoned by her family at 24, Layla Monroe built a company now valued at over $12 million. Her family told her to disappear. Now, they can't scroll without seeing her face. I didn't name them. Didn't need to. The silence I left behind was doing all the work. By the time my face was trending on LinkedIn, they had to notice. And they did. I knew because the text started trickling in. At first, just from old classmates. OMG, is this you? Didn't your sister used to call you a ghost? LOL. Who's haunting who now? Then came the less amusing ones, anonymous numbers. Voicemails I didn't play. Calls I didn't answer. And then I saw it. My mother shared the article. She posted it on Facebook with a caption. So proud of my daughter. She's worked so hard. A true inspiration. My daughter. The same woman who called me a curse. Who told me to get out and never come back. Now pretending she raised me with love and Wi-Fi. Comments flooded in.
Wow.
She's yours? She's incredible. You must be such a proud mom. Where has she been hiding all these years? Hiding? I wasn't hiding. I was healing, building, becoming. And while she bathed in borrowed pride, the walls of their world started cracking. Because that same week, Alyssa lost her job. A whistleblower exposed misconduct. Screenshots leaked. The same fiery meltdown energy she used on me, she'd turned on a coworker, publicly. The video hit Twitter like a grenade. People weren't sympathetic. They started digging. Her old Golden Girl image collapsed in days. Brands unfollowed her. Sponsorships dropped. Her side hustle tanked. And while her fall spiraled, my platform soared. One of the investors who turned her down in college just emailed me to ask if I'd consider joining their board. I didn't accept, but I sent a note back. Thank you for recognizing something they never did. The silence that followed? Sweeter than any check. Because now the world saw me. Not the version they tried to hide, but the one I grew into when they let me go. And that fire they tried to put out? It was lighting up everything. Their lies. Their hypocrisy. And most of all, their need. Because now, they needed me. But I didn't need them. Not anymore. The phone lit up again. 14 missed calls. 1 from my father. 3 from my mother. 10 from Alyssa. I stared at the screen like it belonged to someone else. Like this life, this moment, wasn't mine. But it was. And I wasn't surprised. Because once Alyssa's scandal broke, and the world stopped seeing her as perfect, the panic began. And where do narcissists run when their masks slip? To the one they buried. I made a cup of coffee. Let it steep slowly. Watched the screen keep buzzing. Then the text came. Layla, please. Call us. You don't understand how bad it's gotten. We're family. Can we talk? Your sister is in trouble. She's sorry. We all are. That last line? It almost made me laugh. Now they're sorry. Now that the Golden Girl's image shattered. Now that the daughter they exiled is the only one whose name means anything. Now that I was worth something. But when I was sleeping on Tasha's couch, when I was burning out on freelance gigs and living on canned soup, they didn't care. They didn't call. They didn't even wonder. They told me to disappear, and I did. But now that I've reappeared on screens they can't stop watching, suddenly I'm valuable. I finally opened one of the voicemails. Just one. My mother's voice, brittle, trying too hard to sound soft. Layla, sweetheart. We made mistakes. I see that now. We just want to talk. Please don't shut us out forever. You're still our daughter.
Still.
As if the word daughter means anything after what they did. I didn't respond, but I thought about all the years I begged for that voice to say something kind, something human. And now that it had, it was just too late. The next day, a package arrived at my office. No return address. Inside, a necklace. My grandmother's. She always said I'd inherit it one day. It skipped my mom, and she promised it would be mine. But when I left, they gave it to Alyssa. Now, they wanted to offer it back like a peace treaty. I held it up to the light. Beautiful, but not priceless. Just like me, they only remembered it when it could fix something broken. I put it back in the box, wrote a note, sent it to their address via courier. The note said, I don't need anything from you. You made your choice. Now live in it. No signature. They didn't need one. That night, I finally texted Alyssa. Just one line. You told me to disappear. You didn't say how far. She read it,
Didn't reply.
and I knew, in that moment, she felt it, the weight of all the years she stood behind my mother while I was being erased. She wanted to scream at me now,
Beg.
but I'd already vanished from her reach. Because forgiveness isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just freedom, paid in silence. I knew they'd come. It was only a matter of time. People like them don't handle being ignored well, especially not by the one they cast out. Especially not now that the world sees me. So when my assistant buzzed the intercom that morning, her voice uncertain, I already knew. Layla, there's a woman downstairs. She says she's your mother. Your father's with her. And your sister too. I didn't answer right away. I just stood at the window of my office, 30 floors above them, and looked down at the three figures huddled outside the glass doors of a building they never dreamed I'd walk into, let alone own. My mother looked like she hadn't slept. My father was pacing. Alyssa wore sunglasses, like shame could be hidden behind designer frames. I took a sip of coffee, and I felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just distance. I picked up the phone and said to my assistant, have security keep them in the lobby. Don't let them upstairs. I'll send someone down. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out an envelope I had prepared weeks ago. I knew this day would come. I just didn't know how calm I'd be when it did. I handed the envelope to my assistant.
Give them this.
Nothing else. And then ask security to walk them out. She nodded. 10 minutes later, I got the call. They left. Quietly. Your sister cried. I hung up and sat down, letting the weight of it settle. Not guilt, clarity. Because inside that envelope was a photo. A photo of me for years ago, curled up in the back seat of my car, using my coat as a blanket. Hair messy, eyes tired, laptop on my lap. The caption scrawled on the back in my handwriting. This is what you made. This is what you left behind. That was it. No reply needed. No scene made. Just the truth. And they could do with it what they wanted. Later that day, Alyssa posted something on her story, just a black screen with the words, sometimes the people you need most become strangers. Sometimes it's your own fault. Progress? Maybe. But it didn't change anything. Because they didn't show up because they loved me. They showed up because they finally realized I had become someone they couldn't control, someone with power. But I didn't need their tears now. I needed them to live with the echo of the silence they handed me first. And maybe, just maybe, the image of their daughter, sleeping in a car while they ate dinner and laughed upstairs, would stick with them longer than their empty apologies ever could. I stood at my office window one more time. Below, the city moved on.
So did I.
Because you can beg for forgiveness. You can knock on every door you once slammed shut. But eventually, the locks change. And the person on the other side doesn't need to open it anymore. They called me a curse. They blamed me for everything, from broken engagements to their own bitterness. They threw that word around like it was a permanent stain, like I'd be branded by it forever. But the funny thing about curses? They only work if you believe in them. And I stopped believing the moment I built my first prototype.
Now,
that curse is a crown. After the article went viral, the calls didn't stop from universities, Women's groups, young developers, single moms, first-gen students, girls who had been pushed out of their homes and told to figure it out.
They all saw themselves in me.
Not the polished version with clean lines and a media feature, but the girl who slept in her car. The one who disappeared so she could finally become whole. So I launched something new. Not a tech product. A foundation. Glow Forward. A startup fund, mentorship network, and safe housing initiative for young women who were cut off, cast out, or labeled a burden by their own families. We help them land on their feet, not just with lectures and checklists, but with real tools. Housing grants, laptop donations, therapy stipends, coding boot camp sponsorships. We built a network of shelters that partner with co-working spaces. A place to sleep, a place to build, a place to rise. And it's working. I watched one girl go from sleeping at a bus station to speaking on stage at a tech conference in under a year. Another coded her first mobile game and sold it. Another started a podcast. Cursed and Crowned. I cried when I heard the title, because it's not just my story anymore. It's ours. One night, I gave a TED Talk. Small venue, intimate crowd. I told the full story from the night I walked out to the moment my name landed on Forbes' top 30 founders to watch. I ended with this. They said I was a curse, but really I was just the mirror. And when they couldn't handle their own reflection, they tried to shatter me. The room went silent. Then it rose to its feet. Afterward, a woman came up to me, probably in her 50s, tears in her eyes. I was the Layla of my family, she said. But I never left. Thank you for showing me it's not too late to choose peace. I hugged her, because I knew that ache. The ache of waiting for love from people who only hand you blame. But not anymore. I don't chase peace. I build it. And for the first time in my life, I belong somewhere. Not because they made space for me, but because I carved it out myself. With grace. With grit. With silence sharper than any scream I ever swallowed. 3 months ago, I bought a house. Not for me. I already had my own. This one was different. Brick, 2-story old porch. Familiar. It was the house I grew up in. The one I was thrown out of. The one they called ours when I was paying half the bills and still eating shame at the table. After my parents fell behind on the mortgage, after their financial support systems dried up with my silence, the property went into pre-foreclosure. I bought it anonymously, through a shell company, paid in full. No signatures needed, but mine. They moved out last week. Alyssa posted about it. Sometimes life falls apart, but we rebuild. Still no mention of me. That's fine, because what they don't know is what the house is now. I remodeled it. Not with marble counters or fancy floors. I turned it into a transitional home for girls who had nowhere to go. 6 bedrooms. A shared workspace in the garage. A garden where the shame used to sit. We renamed it the second door. Because sometimes you have to close the first one, hard, before you ever find your place. Each room has a journal on the nightstand. The first page in every single one reads, "You are not their burden. You are not their failure. You are not their shame. You are the story they were too small to contain." This week, I visited to check on renovations. The paint was still drying in the hallway. A girl, maybe 17, peeked out of her room with a shy smile. She was holding the journal. She said, "Is this your story?" I nodded. She asked, "Do you ever miss them?" I paused. Not because I didn't know, but because I finally did. I miss the idea of them, I said, but not the people they really were. She smiled, like she understood too well. I left the house that day with sunlight on my face and nothing in my chest but peace. Because they thought I was a curse. But I was never their shame. I was their mirror. And when they saw their own cruelty reflected back, they couldn't stand it, so they smashed it. But here's the thing about breaking a mirror. It doesn't stop the reflection. It just sharpens it. And now, that reflection is everywhere. In the girls finding shelter. In the women building tech empires from living rooms. In the whispers of daughters who stopped begging to be chosen, and chose themselves instead. I don't talk about them anymore. Not out of pain, out of peace. Because I used to think I needed closure. What I really needed was distance. And I got it. Not by disappearing, by becoming undeniable. They called me a curse, but I was the truth they couldn't bury.
And now?
I walk freely through the door they told me to never come back through, not to prove anything, just to make room for the next girl who needs a place to rise.